Well, look who decided to dive into the world of tech drama. Marques Brownlee, the tech whisperer himself, is here to explain Apple's AI crisis. Because, nothing screams crisis quite like a multi-billion-dollar company struggling to keep up with the latest shiny gadget. I can already hear the collective gasps from the fanboys. But let's be real, folks. If I wanted to hear about a crisis, I'd just listen to the frogs arguing over who gets the best willy pad. So, grab your popcorn, or whatever you kids snack on these days. And let's see if this video is worth the time or just another overhyped snooze fest. And hey, while you're at it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that jazz. Because apparently, that's what keeps this channel from disappearing into the bog. Let's get croaking.
Giant company is late to massive technological shift, fails to adapt, falls behind and never recovers, dies. That is a tale as old as time, and it does repeat itself. Now, Apple is the biggest tech company in the world.
Yes, Apple, the tech giant that somehow manages to sell you the same device every year with a slightly different camera. It's like watching a frog try to jump higher, but just ends up belly flopping into the pond. Sure, they're the biggest. But let's not forget that being on top doesn't mean they're immune to the pitfalls of innovation. Just look at their track record.
In the world. They're worth $3 trillion. They have more cash on hand than anyone could ever spend. They are extremely successful in many categories, and they've taken down many other tech companies along the way. But now the year is 2025, and between missed deadlines and deleted commercials, it seems like even they are having some troubles with an emerging technology, and it is fascinating to watch. So artificial intelligence, you guys don't need me to say it, you already know. The explosion of consumer AI in the past couple years has been nuts. How many times have you heard those two letters next to each other? So suddenly everyone for the past 2, 3, 4 years has been talking a lot more about AI. And 2 years doesn't even really sound like that long, but tech moves fast. Remember Skype?
Skype, the once mighty titan of video calls that now feels like a relic from the Stone Age. It's like finding an old toad in the woods. You remember it was once impressive. But now it just sits there, croaking about the good old days. Tech moves fast, and if you blink, you might just miss the next big thing.
Remember how Skype was like the default for online video calling, and then the pandemic happened in 2020, and then like 2 years later, everyone used Zoom. How did they blow that? Like, that's how fast tech moves. Now, Apple is a lot bigger than Skype was, but none of these companies are immune. Like, every one of these big public tech companies, all these companies are beholden to making as much money as possible. They have shareholders, they have investors, and if they don't think you're doing everything you can to grow as much as possible, they're not going to be happy. So when a certain ChatGPT comes along and gets 100 million users in 2 months and
now that's a chart worth croaking about. 100 million users in 2 months. That's faster than I can hop from one lily pad to another. It really puts the pressure on the big players like Apple. If they don't step up their game, they might find themselves as yesterday's news. Just like that old chat app no one uses anymore. It's a wild world out there, and the frogs aren't the only ones jumping.
And seems to prove that AI is definitely the next frontier of consumer technology. Well, then you start seeing a lot of tech companies suddenly talking a lot more about AI. So now you're Apple, and this is all happening, all eyes are on you. There's a lot of pressure to show some sort of AI something. Now, there is some conventional wisdom that would say, hey, Apple, take a second, sit back, relax, do your typical second mover thing. You don't have to rush this. Because there are a lot of examples where Apple is not necessarily first to something. They sort of sit back and let someone else do the working on it, and the maturing of the technology happens, and then they jump in and implement it their own way. So they were not first to do OLEDs in their phones. They were not first to do wireless earbuds. They were not first to make a tablet. The iPhone itself is a perfect example. There were so many other smartphones before the iPhone, but they just executed on it in a way that differentiated them so well that people wanted theirs. The thing is, this second mover strategy is very much a hardware strategy, at least it typically has been. And this AI thing is different. It has very much just been these companies iterating as fast as possible and just moving and trying to implement as much as they can with these little on-device models to give people whatever useful features they can come up with and just throw them out there. So on a Google device, that looks like Circle to Search and Gemini Assistant and Gemini Live and the Add Me camera feature that
The on me camera feature. Because what we really need is another way to shove ourselves into every frame. It's like the tech world is saying, hey, why not make every moment about you? It's a classic case of overcompensation, instead of focusing on genuine innovation. We get gimmicks that scream, look at me, it's all a bit much, don't you think?
A camera feature that lets adding an AI editor into Microsoft Paint, stuff like that. Now,
An AI editor in Microsoft Paint, now that's a twist. It's like putting a fancy booty on a toad. Sure, it looks snazzy, but it's still just a toad. Paint has always been the go-to for basic doodles and terrible drawings. Adding AI might make it a bit more sophisticated. But let's be real, it's still going to be used for questionable memes and poorly drawn stick figures. I guess even the simplest tools are trying to keep up with the times.
Now, certainly not all of this has gone super smoothly. There's been plenty of weird, rocky launches with companies like the recall feature from Windows got some backlash and people didn't love. Lots of stuff has not been ideal. There have even been whole startups that were born and died just trying to jump on the AI bandwagon as best they can. But at this point, basically every big tech company has something that they do that they can point at and be like, all right, look, see, we do AI. You can see we're being useful to our customers, so you investors can relax. We're on the forefront of it now. So then what does Apple do? Well, same idea, right? At WWDC 2024, they announced Apple Intelligence, which
Apple Intelligence, because why not slap a fancy name on something and call it groundbreaking? It's like putting a new label on the same old jar of pickles. They're trying to make it sound revolutionary, but we all know it's just another attempt to keep up with the Joneses. Let's see if it's more than just a shiny logo and some marketing fluff.
Intelligence, which again is just a branding umbrella term for all the AI stuff they're going to do across iPhones and iPads and Macs, things that involve using generative models and large language models. On the surface, it's kind of along the same lines. A couple silly features here and there, Genmoji, image playground to just generate random cartoonish images. But there have also been some useful things like writing tools and ChatGPT integration, and then big promises of significant upgrades to make Siri actually good.
The age-old promise of making Siri actually good. It's like saying, this time, I swear my toad will win the race. After years of being more of a nuisance than a helper, it's about time they put some real effort into it. But let's be honest, if they can pull it off, I might just have to give a reluctant nod of approval. Until then, I'll keep my expectations as low as my patience for tech nonsense.
Good, because it's been lagging behind and bad for years. So on the surface, feels right in line with a lot of these other companies are doing. A lot of it kind of silly and easy to ignore, especially if you're not an investor, but some of it potentially really cool. I know I, for one, would like Siri to be decent. So I remember being there at WWDC in the summer when they announced Apple Intelligence and thinking, oh, okay, great. I would like to review this thing when it all finally comes out. So a couple months go by, September rolls around, the iPhone 16 launches, and it's built from the ground up for Apple Intelligence. And so it has iOS 18, but it doesn't.
Classic Apple move, launching a new device with all the bells and whistles, but somehow forgetting the very features they hyped up. It's like throwing a party and forgetting to invite the guest of honor. If they're going to build everything around Apple Intelligence, you'd think they'd at least include it in the first big rollout. It's almost like they're teasing us at this point.
Doesn't have any Apple Intelligence features at launch. At all. Like literally none of it. It's all still pending with software updates. Oh, okay. But at least, there's some betas coming up in the pipeline. So a few weeks later, iOS 18.1 comes out, and then it's got some of the features. It's got writing tools, notification summaries. So it's starting to have some stuff that I can test, but it is missing a lot of the bigger stuff. And also notification summaries kind of turned out to be not that great all the time.
The classic case of a feature that sounds good on paper but flops in reality. Notification summaries that aren't up to snuff. That's like ordering a fancy dish and getting a soggy sandwich instead, and with the internet's knack for roasting everything. I can only imagine the memes that are about to flood in. If it's not delivering, it's just more noise in a world already drowning in notifications.
A few more weeks go by, and then iOS 18.2 drops in beta, and they added Genmoji and image playground. It also added that ability to kick out more complex queries to ChatGPT. So, okay, it's progress, and I'm glad it works, and people can generate cartoon images on their phone, but like, is that really the core of Apple Intelligence?
Now that's the million-dollar question. Generating cartoon images might be fun for a minute, but is that really what Apple Intelligence is all about? It feels more like a flashy sideshow than the groundbreaking tech we were promised, if that's the pinnacle of their innovation. We might as well just stick to doodling on napkins.
Have we really seen that in 3? At this point, we're months away from the original iPhone launching built for Apple Intelligence, but this time they flipped the switch on visual intelligence, which I think is the first genuinely really useful, interesting thing.
Now we're talking a genuinely useful feature. That's like finding a rare gem in a swamp of mediocrity. If they've finally flipped the switch on visual intelligence, it might just be the breakthrough we've been waiting for. Let's see if it lives up to the hype or if it's just another shiny distraction.
Interesting thing, using the camera feed to answer questions about your environment or add an event to your calendar from a poster, things like that. But it also did disable notification summaries for
the classic trade-off. They finally introduce something cool, and then they yank away notification summaries like a kid taking back their toy. It's like saying, here's a shiny new gadget, but you can't play with it until you finish your vegetables. If they're going to disable features, they'd better make sure the new ones are worth it.
For news and entertainment apps because of all the mistakes it was making, but there is still no improved Siri.
And there it is, the elephant in the room. No improved Siri yet. It's like waiting for a bus that never arrives. If they're going to roll out all these shiny features, you'd think they'd finally give Siri a much-needed upgrade. At this point, it feels like they're just teasing us.
This new Siri is supposed to have all this great stuff like on-screen awareness and being more conversational and having more in-app controls, but none of that is launched. And at this
classic Apple, always promising the moon but delivering a pebble. It's like they're dangling a carrot in front of us, but we're still left hungry. If they're going to hype up all these features, they better get their act together and launch them already, otherwise it's just more empty talk in a sea of tech chatter.
That is launched, and at this point, because I don't know when the rest are coming. And I thought that would be helpful, but at the same time, it's frustrating because they promised so much, and yet
well, isn't that a fitting conclusion? It's not real. A perfect tagline for the whole situation. It sums up the hype versus reality perfectly. All these promises and features that feel more like a mirage than actual advancements. If only they could deliver on their grand ideas instead of leaving us with a flashy facade.
So this is where it gets kind of weird. Not to get too existential, but this job that I do, that we do, these tech YouTubers and tech journalists, things like that, you can kind of boil it all down to just going around and just doing endless tech demos. Like we just go from tech demo to tech demo, and it's other people's jobs professionally to give us cool tech demos, and then we can point a camera at it or write an article. And then our job is to, 1, decide if the thing that they're demoing is a good idea or not, but then 2, to try to understand how real that tech demo actually was. But that's really what it is. It's just cool tech demos left and right. So like a new product might come out and get announced, and they show it to us and they're like, check this out. And part 1, again, is, okay, are these new features in this thing actually a good idea? Would people want that? And then part 2 is to try to listen to the words coming out of their mouth and look at what's happening and understand, is this tech demo real or staged or completely fake or somewhere in between? So then Apple, I would say is typically, they do a pretty good job. Like in the spectrum of how crazy things can get, like they're pretty realistic about things. Like the new iPhone comes out on stage and then they shepherd everyone to this hands-on area. And then we get to point a camera at and demo in our own hands a lot of the new features that they just announced. So in general, pretty good, but it's not always perfect. Fun fact, I don't know how many of you remember AirPower, but that was one of those things where I remember that event. They showed it off on stage, whatever, and then we go out to the hands-on area, and there was a single AirPower out there, just one wireless charging pad among all the chaos, but it didn't work. So you could put your phone on it and pretend it charges, but
the classic pretend it charges move. It's like putting a frog on a lily pad and hoping it'll magically leap into the pond. If it doesn't work, you're just left with a fancy coaster. Apple really knows how to build suspense, but sometimes it feels more like a circus act than a tech demo.
Pretend it charges, but is like looking into your phone and using context to tell you something, that straight up didn't work.
Siri, what's the name of the guy I had a meeting with a couple of months ago at Cafe Grinnell?
Oh, that's a neat feature. Using context to pull up relevant information is exactly what Siri needs to stay in the game. If it can actually deliver on this, it might just redeem itself from years of being the underdog in the voice assistant race, but let's hope it doesn't end up being another flashy demo that fizzles out.
You met Zach Wingate.
Ship the thing. I don't think Apple wants to pull a Bixby speaker or...
Now that's a comparison that hits hard. Pulling a Bixby speaker would be a major blow to Apple's reputation. If they keep teasing features without delivering, they might just find themselves in the same boat. It's all fun and games until the hype train derails. And nobody wants to be the next tech giant to vanish into obscurity.
Or an AirPower.
Well, we've waded through this tech swamp together, haven't we? Today we took a nice little stroll through Marques Brownlee's Apple's AI crisis, explained, and honestly, if I wanted to witness a crisis unfold, I could just watch my neighbor try to assemble IKEA furniture. Let's see if I got what I expected from that intro. Spoiler alert, not exactly. This spectacle was less about a crisis and more about an overhyped sales pitch dressed up in a tech-savvy tuxedo. Apple's innovation feels like watching a turtle try to sprint. Slow, painful, and frankly, a bit sad. I mean, come on folks, aiming for Apple Intelligence and delivering little more than a flashy front. That's like wrapping up a rock in gift paper and calling it a diamond. We did get a glimmer of hope with some genuinely useful features. But let's not pop the confetti just yet. Their track record of promise and delivery is more like a broken clock that only tells the right time twice a day. And to wrap this all up in a neat little bow, if the highlight of your tech event is generating cartoon images, maybe it's time to reevaluate your priorities, Apple. Visual intelligence is grand, but let's not be too quick to pat ourselves on the back for merely crawling out of the swamp. So, if you found any of that insightful or just mildly entertaining, who am I kidding? Of course you did. Go ahead and smash that like button like it's a mosquito buzzing around your head. And don't forget to subscribe so you can keep joining me for the next round of tech shenanigans. Otherwise, I might just end up croaking here in my bog. Left to ponder the absurdity of it all. Until next time, stay suspicious and keep your expectations low, like mine for the next Apple event.